Judy Garland was only 16 when The Wizard of Oz turned her into one of the most recognizable faces in the world. Generations grew up loving her as Dorothy, the girl who followed the yellow brick road and sang "Over the Rainbow." To millions, it was pure magic. But to Judy, the film carried a truth she could never escape. For the rest of her life, she refused to sit down and watch it again. The reason why was not nostalgia, nor embarrassment. It was something much darker, tied to pain she carried until her final days. What could make a Hollywood legend avoid her greatest triumph? The answer will leave you stunned. Before The Wizard of Oz, Judy Garland was not yet a household name, but her life was already unusual. Born Frances Ethel Gum in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, she grew up surrounded by music and performance. Her parents owned a small theater, and by age 2 she was already on stage with her sisters. The Gum sisters became a modest touring act, and audiences adored little Frances for her powerful voice. But behind the applause was a girl raised under extraordinary pressure. From the very beginning, Judy's life was tied to performance, expectation, and the push to be exceptional. When the family moved to California, her mother, Ethel, pushed harder to secure a future in Hollywood. Childhood became auditions, rehearsals, and constant reminders to smile on cue, leaving little room for normal experiences. At 13, Judy signed with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studios. For most, it would have been a dream, but MGM was more a machine than a dream factory, grinding down child stars into marketable products. Judy's talent was recognized immediately, but she was not the ingenue MGM wanted. Executives mocked her appearance, calling her the little hunchback because of her curved spine, or telling her she was fat compared to other actresses. This cruelty left Judy insecure even before her career truly began. Studio handlers began giving her pills, stimulants to keep her awake, through exhausting shoots and sedatives to force her to sleep. What should have been a time of discovery instead marked the start of lifelong dependence. Still, Judy's star power could not be ignored. Her voice carried an emotional depth rare for her age. Audiences were captivated by her sincerity in songs like "Zing Went the Strings of My Heart." MGM realized she had something more valuable than glamour: relatability. She could be the ordinary girl with the extraordinary voice. It was then that The Wizard of Oz entered the picture. MGM needed a young actress who could embody innocence and longing. Dorothy Gale had to feel authentic, someone viewers believed was truly yearning for something over the rainbow. Judy was their answer, though she had no idea how much the role would define and eventually haunt her life. By the time she stepped into Dorothy's shoes, Judy was already scarred by insecurity, control, and dependency on pills. To the world, Dorothy became a symbol of hope. To Judy Garland, the yellow brick road was the beginning of shadows that never left her. For millions of viewers, The Wizard of Oz became a dazzling fantasy filled with music, color, and timeless wonder. But for Judy Garland, the making of the film was anything but magical. Behind the cheerful songs and whimsical characters was a harsh environment where the studio's demands came before the well-being of its young star. Filming began in 1938, and Judy, only 16, quickly discovered how grueling it would be. MGM controlled nearly every aspect of her life, from her posture to what she ate. Producers obsessed over her weight, insisting she remain slim enough to look like an innocent farm girl. To enforce this, she was placed on a strict diet of chicken soup, black coffee, and cigarettes meant to suppress her appetite. When that was not enough, she was given amphetamines to stay alert and barbiturates to sleep. Day after day, her body endured a punishing chemical cycle, treated as though her health was expendable. The schedule itself was relentless. Judy often worked 12 to 16 hours under blazing studio lights. Her gingham dress and ruby slippers looked enchanting on screen, but felt unbearable during endless takes. Even the makeup process added strain. To create the illusion of flawless skin, her face was layered with heavy foundation, which caked and cracked under the lamps. She also faced disturbing treatment from some of her co-stars. Years later, she revealed that several actors playing the Munchkins mocked and harassed her between takes. At 16, she was vulnerable, but her complaints were dismissed. MGM executives saw her not as a child needing protection, but as an investment that had to deliver. The production was also riddled with danger. Margaret Hamilton, the Wicked Witch, suffered severe burns when a stunt went wrong. The Tin Man's original actor had to be replaced after an allergic reaction to toxic makeup. The drive for spectacle created unsafe conditions for nearly everyone involved, and Judy absorbed the emotional toll. Despite it all, she delivered a performance that became legendary. Her rendition of Over the Rainbow captured a longing so profound that MGM nearly cut it for being too slow. Judy fought to keep it, pouring raw emotion into a song that eerily mirrored her own desire to escape. On screen, Dorothy symbolized innocence and hope. Off-screen, Judy Garland was exhausted, humiliated, and increasingly dependent on substances she never asked for. The bright world of Oz looked magical to audiences, but to Judy, it was already becoming a cage. When The Wizard of Oz premiered in 1939, Judy Garland became an overnight sensation. Audiences adored her as Dorothy, critics praised her voice, and MGM celebrated the film as one of its crown jewels. At just 17, she had secured her place in Hollywood history. But with fame came a new kind of prison. While the world embraced Dorothy Gale, Judy Garland found herself trapped in the shadow of that character. Almost immediately, MGM saw the immense commercial value of her image. To executives, she was not Judy Garland. She was Dorothy, the eternal teenager. This branding limited her opportunities, keeping her in youthful roles long after she had grown past them. Even as she aged, she was forced into childish costumes and told to act younger than she was. The message was clear. Judy was not free to grow into her own identity. At the same time, the criticism of her body never stopped. While fans considered her beautiful, studio executives constantly told her otherwise. Compared to glamorous contemporaries like Lana Turner and Ava Gardner, Judy was called the plain one. Her meals were monitored, her weight scrutinized, and her dependence on stimulants and sedatives continued. Each year deepened her insecurities, eroding her self-esteem. The contradictions in her life were staggering. To the public, she was a beacon of joy. In private, she was fragile and anxious, hollowed out by constant criticism. Instead of celebrating her triumph, The Wizard of Oz became the foundation for lifelong struggles. The film made her a star, but also cemented the conditions that tormented her. Hollywood gossip added fuel. Rumors about her relationships, moods, and ability to handle fame filled tabloids. Every stumble became headline material. For a teenager, the constant scrutiny was unbearable. She had gone from an unknown girl in Minnesota to one of the most watched women in America. Still, MGM kept her working. Films like Babes in Arms and Meet Me in St. Louis made her bankable, but also kept her in a punishing cycle. Combined with her growing chemical dependency, the workload left her drained. She smiled for cameras, but privately, she was collapsing. Most tragically, The Wizard of Oz itself became a source of pain. Instead of remembering it as her breakthrough, Judy associated it with humiliation, exploitation, and the loss of her childhood. Audiences saw Dorothy as hope and freedom. Judy saw her as the symbol of everything stolen from her. The applause was deafening. But when it faded, Judy was left in silence, trapped between the beloved star the world adored and the broken woman she could not escape becoming. To the world, The Wizard of Oz was a masterpiece of joy and wonder. For Judy Garland, it was a painful memory she could never escape. As the years passed, she avoided watching the movie and rarely spoke about it in detail. Whenever it aired on television or was praised in interviews, she acknowledged fans politely, but privately, she admitted she could not bear to see it again. Her refusal was not embarrassment about her acting, it was about what the film represented. Rewatching Oz meant reliving the humiliation, exhaustion, and strict control she endured as a teenager. It reminded her of being forced into diets, mocked by executives, and treated as a product instead of a person. To audiences, the film was magic. To Judy, it was trauma. Even Over the Rainbow, the song that became her signature, carried painful weight. Fans embraced it as an anthem of hope, but Judy often grew emotional singing it, as though the lyrics cut too close to her own longing for escape. What the public cherished as uplifting, Judy experienced as haunting. In rare interviews, she confessed her discomfort. She once remarked that she simply could not bring herself to watch the movie again because it hurt too much. To fans, this was puzzling. How could she resent the film that defined her? But to Judy, it was clear. Oz was less a triumph than a reminder of exploitation. Privately, she grew frustrated with how the world never let her move beyond Dorothy. While other actresses were allowed to evolve, Judy remained frozen in the public eye as the wide-eyed farm girl in braids. Each mention of Dorothy was a reminder of her lost innocence. Her refusal to revisit the Wizard of Oz was not rebellion, it was survival. For everyone else, Oz was a dreamland. For Judy Garland, it was the place she had been broken, and the memory she spent her life trying to escape. The darker truths about the Wizard of Oz did not fully surface until decades later. As Judy Garland grew older, and as colleagues and historians began speaking out, a troubling portrait of the production emerged. Stories of mistreatment, exploitation, and secrecy revealed a side of Hollywood that audiences never saw. One of the most disturbing claims involved Judy's treatment by the actors who played the Munchkins. She later admitted that some of them harassed and mocked her between takes. At only 16, she was still a child, yet MGM dismissed her complaints. She was told to laugh it off and keep working. To the studio, she was not a teenager needing protection. She was an investment that had to deliver. MGM's control over her life extended far beyond the set. Handlers dictated what she ate, when she slept, and even who she associated with. The pills that kept her awake during long days and put her to sleep at night were provided by the studio itself, creating a dependency that followed her for the rest of her life. Insiders later suggested that her personal life was also tightly managed. Some claimed she was discouraged from dating, while others alleged she was pressured into relationships that benefited the studio. Not every rumor can be proven, but the atmosphere of manipulation made them difficult to dismiss. The production itself was riddled with hazards. The first actor cast as the Tin Man had to be replaced after toxic makeup nearly destroyed his lungs. Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch, suffered third-degree burns during a stunt gone wrong. If adult actors faced such dangers, Judy's vulnerability as a teenager becomes even more haunting. The studio's pursuit of spectacle often came at the expense of basic safety. For Judy, these were not just horror stories told years later. They were her lived experience. Every time a former colleague confirmed the rumors or another behind-the-scenes account was published, it reinforced why she could never look back on the Wizard of Oz with fondness. For audiences, Oz was a magical escape. For Judy Garland, it was a reminder of how the industry had broken her down, piece by piece, before she was even old enough to understand what was happening. In public, Judy Garland was expected to smile whenever the Wizard of Oz was mentioned. Fans adored her as Dorothy, and journalists never tired of asking about the film. At premieres, on talk shows, and in interviews, she was pushed to reminisce about the yellow brick road as though it had been a highlight of her life. She learned to play along, offering polite comments, and even singing "Over the Rainbow" on command. To audiences, she seemed grateful, even nostalgic, but in private, her feelings told a very different story. Friends who knew her best often recalled that she would wince when the movie came up. Though she never denied its success, she rarely spoke about it willingly. To Judy, Dorothy Gale was not a cherished memory. It was a ghost that followed her everywhere. When television stations began airing the film annually in the 1950s, a whole new generation of fans discovered her performance. For Hollywood, this meant renewed profits and greater fame for Judy. For Judy herself, it meant constant reminders of a past she desperately wanted to leave behind. Privately, she would admit that she could not bear to rewatch the film. She told confidants that the experience was too painful, tied to feelings of control, humiliation, and lost innocence. The Dorothy image also stunted her career in ways that frustrated her deeply. While she longed for serious adult roles, MGM insisted that she stay forever youthful. Even as she matured, she was dressed in pinafores and ponytails, often paired with younger male co-stars to maintain the illusion of innocence. Every time the studio marketed her as Dorothy, it felt like chains tightening around her identity. The pressure to maintain this public image seeped into every corner of her life. Judy's relationships, her health, even her sense of self were influenced by the contradiction between who she really was and who the world demanded she be. She often described feeling like two people, the smiling star audiences adored and the broken woman who struggled when the cameras were off. Few understood just how deep the divide ran. This disconnect only worsened as her personal struggles grew more visible. Tabloids feasted on her every stumble, portraying her as unstable and fragile. Yet whenever she stood on a stage, she still had to belt out "Over the Rainbow," as though it was a song of joy, even when it cut into her soul. For Judy, the song and the film were no longer art. They were burdens she had to carry to survive in the industry. In private moments, Judy sometimes revealed the truth with striking clarity. She admitted that Dorothy represented everything she had lost: her childhood, her freedom, her innocence. While fans cherished the character as a symbol of hope, Judy saw her as a reminder of the price she had paid. The Wizard of Oz had made her famous, but it had also made her a prisoner of her own legend. As the years passed, Judy Garland's complicated relationship with the Wizard of Oz only deepened. While the movie became a timeless classic, replayed on television every year and celebrated across generations, Judy herself could never escape its shadow. For her, Dorothy Gale was not simply a character. It was a cage that trapped her in the past. No matter what she accomplished afterward, audiences and the industry alike always pulled her back to that 16-year-old girl in pigtails singing about a rainbow. This constant association with her childhood role shaped her career in profound ways. Casting directors hesitated to offer her mature roles, fearful that audiences would not accept her as anything other than Dorothy. Even as she delivered acclaimed performances in films like Meet Me in St. Louis and A Star is Born, she was still introduced as Dorothy from Oz. It was as though the world refused to allow her to grow up. This professional typecasting weighed heavily on her, reinforcing the insecurities MGM had planted in her teenage years. The emotional toll was equally severe. Every time the film resurfaced in popular culture, Judy was reminded of the humiliation she endured on set: the dieting, the pills, the ridicule, the harassment. Watching the movie, or even hearing it praised, meant reopening those wounds. Friends noted that she often became visibly distressed when The Wizard of Oz was mentioned. She loved her fans deeply, but she could not share their joy when it came to the film. The long-term effects extended far beyond her career. The studio's insistence on controlling every aspect of her life, beginning with Oz, created patterns she never fully escaped. Her dependence on medication, her struggles with self-image, and her difficulties in relationships all traced back, in some way, to the foundation built during that pivotal film. Instead of a cherished memory, it became the symbol of everything she had endured. Yet even as Judy tried to distance herself from the movie, the world only grew more attached to it. By the 1950s and 1960s, when television broadcasts turned the film into an annual tradition, Judy was expected to embrace her role in its legacy. She often sang "Over the Rainbow" at concerts because audiences demanded it, but those who knew her well could see the pain it caused. Each performance was both a triumph and a torment, as though she was reliving her trauma in front of thousands of cheering fans. Ultimately, Judy's refusal to ever rewatch The Wizard of Oz was more than an act of avoidance. It was a way of protecting herself from the weight of her own past. The film may have made her immortal in the eyes of the public, but for Judy Garland, it stood as a monument to everything she had lost. The world saw Oz as a dreamland filled with magic. Judy saw it as a reminder of the price she paid for fame, a price that haunted her until her final days. Judy Garland gave the world a performance that has endured for generations. The Wizard of Oz remains one of the most beloved films in history, a story of courage, hope, and the dream of finding home. Yet behind the curtain of Hollywood magic was a young girl who suffered deeply. For Judy, Dorothy was not just a role. It was a reminder of pain, control, and innocence lost. This is why she could never bring herself to rewatch the film that defined her. It was not nostalgia, not modesty, but survival. To protect herself, she turned away from the yellow brick road, even as the world never stopped walking it with her. Her story forces us to reconsider the cost of stardom and the weight carried by those who seem to shine the brightest. Judy Garland will forever be remembered for her voice, her heart, and her ability to move audiences. But her refusal to revisit The Wizard of Oz is a reminder that behind every legend lies a human story. sometimes more tragic than anyone imagined. And now, we want to hear from you. Did Judy's hidden truth about the Wizard of Oz surprise you? Do you see the film differently after knowing what she endured? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more untold stories from Hollywood's golden age, do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss the next one.